All right, everybody, welcome back again. Joey Vegas D-Tech. How the heck are you guys? Today we're doing Tech Talk number 66, and the topic today is it technique or is it technology? If you guys are interested in hearing more of that, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alrighty, guys, welcome back. Joey Vegas D-Tech. June 1st, man, 2022. Can you believe it? We're already into June. This is almost like halfway through the year. You know, some of your guys' weather conditions should be perfect right now, man. And so for those of you guys that are back east or up north where it's snowy, your weather conditions should be wonderful right now. Everybody should be out doing metal detecting. Unfortunately for me, your perfect weather schedules or conditions are actually my worst, because now it's starting to get over 100 where I'm at, and that is terrible. Every time I go outside, it's like when you open up the door, literally the sun feels like it's 10 feet from your face. You know what I mean? So for me, I have to regulate my hunt conditions to about the last hour before sunset. That's about all I can stomach. But anyways, man, today we are doing Tech Talk 66, and the topic today is going to be technique versus technology. I got a little bit of a flow sheet going on here because there's a lot of questions and so forth that I'm going to try to hit on. Subscribers have been asking me to talk about this issue and topic, and I think it's an important one. So let's get right to it. So guys, I just want to know, share your thoughts here, man. Leave your opinions down below. When it comes down to technique versus technology, which one is the better one to have? Now, ideally, we want to have the best of both worlds, right? We want to have the best technique, and we want to have the best of technology. And there's a third factor that we need to talk about too, and that is going to be the actual luck factor. Okay, so basically all three of these are intertwined in this, this hobby of ours right here. It's not just one. But if you had to have one, if you were only regulated to having just one, what would it be? What is more powerful? Is it better to be a professional with, say, a bounty hunter and a tesoro? Or would a newbie that very, very much doesn't know very much about anything, with basic metal detecting, coming out with something as powerful as a Deus 2 or a Nox 800? Which individual here would have the benefit? In my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I've always said you got to start somewhere, and you got to start in the trenches. And I think having a general understanding of what metal detecting is, you got to have that technique first, and then you employ the technology later. Okay. That's just my, method of thinking. And, that is debatable, and that is very subjective. You know what I mean? You guys can tell me what you guys think. Would a professional with a cheap metal detector do better than somebody who's pretty much fresh into the game with something powerful like a Deus 2? Which guy would actually fare better? Okay. Now, when I speak about metal detecting, it's really funny. Metal detecting has lots of dynamics to it. And so many people that don't understand what it is I do, especially, with me at work, guys ask me all the time, what is this channel that you've got, Joey? I keep on hearing that you've got this metal detecting channel. What is that? And why are you doing metal detecting? That sounds relatively boring. And I'm like, listen, guys, you know what? It is, or it could be considered boring if you guys are simpletons. Okay? I mean, if you have a simple mind, and you can't grasp that, you need constant gratification instantly, right? So if you're actually going to go metal detecting and the first 3 holes that you dig, you don't find nothing good, you find a couple of pieces of foil or something like that, you automatically will just say, this is garbage and I don't want to do this, is a waste of time. That would be a very simpleton mentality. That's just like joining a karate class and thinking that, the first week that you're in there putting on a karate uniform, that somehow you're going to be Van Damme or Seagal or somebody within a first week, and you should be given all these awards and belts to show that, for what you just did in 1 week. Or let's just say that you're going to go fishing, and, if you're not catching anything within the first hour, well, fishing just sucks. There's no fish out here in the pond. If you have a very basic and simple mind, then for the most part, you might think that metal detecting is a very boring hobby. But really, dude, for me, there's a lot of dynamics to metal detecting that makes it fun, you know. So anyways, man, getting back to this, I cannot talk about metal detecting and cover all bases because there's so many different styles. Okay, that's the next thing we're going to talk about in this technology versus technique is your search style, modes, conditions, whatever you want to call it. I mean, metal detectors has different modes on it. You know what I mean? I can only talk about park metal detecting in Las Vegas because that's all I have. You know, I don't do very much beach metal detecting, or none. Fields, relic, you know, permissions. I don't do any of that type of detecting. So when I speak about, you know, technology versus technique, I can only employ the logic that I'm trying to give you or advice that I'm giving you based on if you live in a city and all you're doing is local park detecting. This is where I love this community because everybody out there comes from a different area, and all of you guys, when you chime in and give me comments, man, I read this type of stuff and I'm able to, you know, condense it and put it into a format and bring it back out and basically regurgitate good information back to you because you guys have different conditions where you search. So talking about the dynamics and search conditions, you know, you have to have a different understanding based on the type of terrain that you guys are searching in and different technique. Okay. So, all right, guys. So anyways, getting back here to dynamics, each of you guys are going to have a specific search style or condition as to how you detect. Some of you guys are going to be able to detect parks. Some of you guys do beaches, you know, farms, fields, you know, relics, and prospecting. I don't have any information because I have never done any of those type of detectings. All of my detecting has been, you know, strictly parks here in Las Vegas. Okay. So a lot of this information that I'm giving you here is going to change, you know, based on how you guys detect. And this is where you guys can contribute and chime in the comments below as to some of the techniques or the technology that you guys use, where you guys dig to help you combat and become better and efficient in how you guys detect. All right. So that's the other word that I want to use here, man, is efficiency, right? Becoming efficient as a detector is going to come down to your, you know, your understanding, right? And your tech and the technique that you use in the terrain that you hunt in. For me, it's very simple. A lot of guys have chimed in on me and tell me, Joey, you know what? Being that you only detect parks, and I seen how you cut into the ground, you are cutting through sod, and basically your sod layer is only 5 inches deep. You don't really need a detector that's very powerful in order to plow through and find the stuff that you're going to be looking for in your parks, and that's true. So the third thing I want to talk about here, man, is the belief and ideology of how to detect. All right. It's like I said, this is debatable and subjectable. A lot of people in here think that you should dig it all. I hear this quite a bit. You know, the idea that when I detect, my style is I dig it all. Okay. And then we have other people saying, screw that, dude. I cannot dig it all. I'm not in, you know, I'm not in the right shape to be digging it all. I discriminate. You know, that's my detector is strong enough to discriminate, and I'm going to be using the feature to help me spare me some time and problems having to dig trash up out of the ground. So I just want to know, man, you know, where is the line drawn between digging it all and discriminating? Because look, I mean, it's hard for me to talk about this because when I first initially started metal detecting, I found a lot of things, but I found a lot of things because I was using a very basic detector. My first detector was like a compadre. It didn't have all these features on it, man. It just made a noise. I turned the dial, and if that noise continued to be there as I turned the dial up, I moved it through ranges. You know what I mean? And that was all the discrimination that I had. So I was digging up a whole lot of stuff, but yet in the process of digging up a whole lot of trash, I found a whole lot of good things too. You know, so I mean, that was, I don't know, the technology wasn't there, and I guess it all came down to technique at that point. But listen, guys, each of us here, you know, this hobby here, man, not all of us are young men. You know what I mean? Not all of us have the ability to dig it all. As much as we like to say that we're going to do that, if you're not a young guy, man, if you've got lower back pains, you know what I mean, and you know, depending on how heavy you are. You know, I mean, I could stand to lose 20 or 30 pounds. I mean, you know, I'm 6 foot, And based on the weight, you know, the BMI index that they say that I should weigh, I should be about 170, 175 pounds. Man, that was the weight that I was freshman year of college, you know. And now at 52 years old, you know, you're going to progressively put on weight each year, and it's harder and harder to shed that. So now that I'm like 25 to 30 pounds over, I'm right around 212 pounds, you know, and they say that I should be 175. So, you know, when you're bending down on the ground, man, and you're like leaned over trying to extract things, that constant bending with your back is just bending all the time into the ground. That just wears your lower back out. So within like an hour or so of me doing it, I can feel my lower back. I have to literally just keep leaning back and trying to stretch backwards in order to kind of work the kink out in my back, you know. And then some of us don't have very good knees. I mean, this was part of the big reason why my father was having to dip out of the metal detecting. I mean, I would love to metal detect with him. Hell, I wouldn't even be doing metal detecting if it wasn't for him introducing me to metal detecting. You know, but unfortunately, his health is nowhere near, he's not able to do this anymore. It's just over. At 80 years old, he's done, you know. So digging it all versus discriminating. Some guys even tell me that they would rather use the I don't dig anything in the iron range, so it's just basically I dig everything above iron. Okay, that sounds more plausible. But then some of you guys have a technique where you're saying, hey man, I just go through a park and I'm pulling all the high tones out, and then I come back to that park and I'll start pulling mid tones out, and I'll start pulling low tones out, and if I have to, I'll pull all the iron out. Because your ideology here is that you're just eliminating, you're just trying to eliminate all the trash to get to the good stuff, and this could take years to do, man. You know, I don't know that I have that kind of time. I don't know if I have that type of, you know, physical desire to actually do that type of detecting. What do you guys think? I mean, do you guys have a dig it all mentality? Is that the best way for you guys to get 100%, you know, a positive extraction rate, is to dig everything out? Or do you guys discriminate? Do you discriminate just the iron tones and go for everything above that? Or do you cherry pick and set your discrimination patterns based on what it is that you want to find? I'm very interested to know this here, guys, because again, when we're talking technique versus technology, all these dynamics come to play. All right. So anyways, moving on, man, I want to talk about these guys here. Bottle caps, man. So the other day, yesterday, actually, I went out and I wanted to reduplicate, you know, when I found that tungsten ring over at the park. I had been to that park many, many different times with many different detectors, man. And, you know, when I found that tungsten ring, I was like, how did I miss this? You know, I know I've been over this many times with many different detectors. How did I find this? Was it a relatively new find or something? And I found that with the Legend, right? So I wanted to come back and try to duplicate that with the old Equinox here, and using the old, you know, of course, using the fresh little Coiltech coil that I really, really like, because it makes this detector so damn light and fun to use. So going back out there, man, one of the things that I was putting down as a negative on the Legend was me finding bottle caps. And, you know, everybody's like saying, hey man, you know, the Legend doesn't have a bottle cap reject. I don't even know what a bottle cap reject is, man. To me, a bottle cap reject has to be discrimination. You have to be putting discrimination patterns in there to miss bottle caps. And here's the problem that I was having, man. So the one day that I went out with the Equinox, I think I hit like 5 bottle caps in one hour dig, and I was kind of upset about that, saying, dude, is there really a problem with the Legend with the discrimination? But dude, I have 7 right here. 7 bottle caps that I hit with this Equinox in one session of an hour. Now, what is shocking about that is that these bottle caps fooled me. Okay, the bottle caps fooled me because I was in multi, okay, in park and multi, and they were coming in between 12, 13, and 15. Okay, and I don't know, a lot of you guys are like, okay, so what's the problem here? 12, 13, 15. Well, no, the problem is that 12, 13, and 15 is also the juicy numbers that I don't walk away from. Okay. Now, here's what's funny is that when this stuff was in the ground, it gave me that number. But when I took these bottle caps and I actually ran the numbers in the air, when I put them on the ground and I ran over them with the detector, the numbers were anywhere between 27 and 35 in the air. Now, 27 and 35, if they're scratchy and iffy and jumpy and stupid sounding, I might have like, you know, thought about moving on that, and that would have alleviated me maybe only getting 3 bottle caps as opposed to 7. But why did this machine, and even when I went and double checked it, sometimes I double check it using technology now, the multi, I flipped it down into single mode and tried to see if there's any kind of a, you know, a difference between how it sounds or the VDI between, like, say 15 kilohertz and multi, and I was still getting the same reading of between 12 and 15. I have to dig those numbers, man, because look, a 12 is either going, 12 and 15 are either going to give me, you know, the typical pull tab. It will also give me the typical nickel, and it will also give me what I'm looking for anyways, which is gold ring. So, dude, just take a look at that, man. So with these 3 desirable or undesirable targets here that are coming in that range, and now I got to contend with this, all coming in at that exact same range. It can be stressful. You know what I mean? So is technology helping me? Where is the technology helping me to not have to dig all that? Or do I have to employ the dig it all? You know what I mean? How can I? How can I do anything but dig it all? And the problem that I was having was, in the ground, it would sound between 12 to 15, which is a desirable number for me. But out of the ground, it was hitting 27 to 35, and it's the proximity. Okay, when I've got that, when I'm actually doing my sweep with the detector, I'm normally sweeping above the target between 1 to 1.5 inch of air gap. When I'm doing an air test and I'm sweeping above the target at 1 to 1.5, yes, I'm getting the exact same numbers that I should be getting. Now, Jerry the Mining Monkey, he actually contacted, I believe, the company that makes the Corona bottle caps, and he wanted to know what is the metallurgy in this cap, what is actually in it, you know, and I believe they told him that the composition of that bottle cap was steel, you know, and all this time I thought it was some type of a alloy with aluminum or something like that, but he says that they told him that it's made out of steel. So, you know, it's very difficult for me when I am in the ground and I'm getting fooled. 7 bottle caps with the Equinox using the Coiltech coil. The numbers were between 12 and 15, so I went and pulled them. And each time that I pulled the bottle cap, I was like, "What? Again? Another bottle cap?" Yeah, bro. So, man, tell me, man, what is it that you guys are doing out there? If you guys have an Equinox, man, I noticed, like I said, depending on how deep it is in the ground, as I pulled the coil up, there was a range. You know, and it had kind of the opposite range that the Legend had. The Legend on bottle caps was, when it was close to the ground, it would ring a lower number, and then as I would bring it up, the numbers would get higher. With this Equinox right here and this Coiltech coil, when the target is close, the numbers will be high, and then as I pull it back, the numbers right at around 3 inches or so in the ground, the number now changes to like 12, 13, 15. You know what I mean? So, hey, man, I mean, I'm getting fooled, but it's a clean hit. It's a clean target. It's a clean sound, and it's a solid VDI. And it's, you know, what can I do? I mean, if the VDI is solid and the tone is solid, but it's 3 inches in the ground, it's giving me the number that I have to dig. But once it's out of the ground and I hit it again, it's that ugly, goofy number that I would avoid it in the first place. So anyways, man, efficient pinpointing. This is another thing that I lean towards, the technique being more important than the technology. Is the way that I detect, man, is I try to get in and out fast. The more times that I can get down and get up, the better I increase my likelihood of finding something, because I'm trying to maximize the amount of holes that I can get in a day. I'm trying to maximize the amount of pulls, targets. And a lot of times what I do is, as I come across the target, I hit the target, and then I go automatically to try to get the cherry pick, right? So once I can hit, here's the target, blip, blap, then I try to get the cherry pick on it, bick, 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 and then I start doing the wiggle, right? The wiggle on it, and then I start doing the pullback, right? So that's what it is. So here's the target in the ground. It's like a big sweep, bim, bim, and then here's the blade of the double D. Once I get that blade on the double D right here, man, now I'm getting that double smack. So I'm cherry picking on it, and then I pull back. So it smack, and then the signal falls off. The numbers, the VDI will lose its consistency and integrity, and it will just get crunchy and fall off at the very top of the coil. So then I know exactly right there, exactly where it's at. I put my detector down and I just point right at the very top of that spot, and I know exactly where to dig. And I cut my little 5-inch plug, and generally somewhere within that 5-inch plug, I'm able to extract what it is that I'm looking for. That's an efficient pinpointing technique. Now that doesn't always work sometimes. Sometimes I get out there and I'm actually confused. I hit a target and it sounds great, but then as I continue to sweep on it, its integrity starts to fall off. And I'm like, what is this? I can't isolate it. I can't really get it to give me a consistent tone, but it sounds good. But then as I start to try to get the cherry pick, it won't let me cherry pick. It'll start sounding completely different. So what do? I try to rotate around it and try to come in at a different angle to try to get the cherry pick. And then I get the cherry pick, and then as I try to do the pullback technique, something else happens. It runs into another target that's nearby, and that screws up the tone. And so now I'm just getting this big collage of frustration. And rotating around it, I'm spending too much time trying to pinpoint this target. So I know this is going to be a messy hole because I can't isolate it to a 5-inch cut plug. You know what I mean? Because there's multiple targets in the area, and me trying to hit the target and pull back, the wiggle pullback, it's backing into another target, and that's starting to come into the coil and giving it another number, and there's the frustration again. So I mean, I don't know, man. For me, I have my challenges out there, but I'd really like to know your guys' thoughts. What is it, man? What is more powerful? Is it technique or is it technology? Yes, like I said, in an ideal world, we would like to have the best of both. We want to have a good, solid foundation in technique, extraction, pinpointing, and we want to have the technology. See, guys, for me, like when I think about multi-frequency, I think of it as like a transparency overlay. If you guys ever had microfiche machines when you were in high school, you had that clear transparency with like an outline on it. And what I think about it is like, if you have a single mode, you have one transparency, you lay it down and it has a guideline on it. And then if you have multi, you're going to grab another transparency, you're going to lay it over the top of that, and that's going to lay on top of the first transparency, and it may be a little bit off, but it'll have areas that are consistent. Then you'll grab another transparency and you'll lay it on top of that. So let's just say it's like having 3 frequencies or 3 transparencies. As you layer it over each other like a sandwich, you're going to see where each one of them have a point where they constantly line up, right? And it gives you that congruency of saying that, yeah, we all agree on this one thing right here. And that's where I employ in my mind, this is how like multi-frequency should work to benefit me. Otherwise, if you're just using a single frequency mode, you have just one transparency, and you got to get the information based on the one transparency to make your decision of whether to dig. And with multi-frequency, I try to believe in my mind that you have multiple transparencies overlaying each other like that to make that, to give you more information to make that decision of whether or not to dig. I don't like to play around too much when I do pinpointing. I want to get down and get it out. The more times that I can get down and get it out, and the more holes that I dig, the higher the likelihoods that I'm going to be, of course I'm going to have the challenges of getting this, but with the more holes that I dig, eventually, man, I would hope to find a way to get this. Because this right here makes anybody's day. Right, guys? So anyways, guys, look, man, thank you so much again for staying with me on another Tech Talk 66. And this one here is about the technique versus technology. You guys tell me, what's the most important feature there of the two? Of course, we want the ideal setting of having the best of both, but we cannot eliminate the fact that, you know what, you got to have your luck too. Luck, that's another factor. You got to be able to have the insight to be able to go to a park and say, look, man, or wherever. And for me, park detecting, I'm always paying attention to where the people are at. When people get out of the car and I see them like little army ants, they're trekking down to a certain area and then they're setting up all their chairs and so forth. And this is the practice spot where they all always congregate. In my, in my like my soul, my urgency, my desire wants to get over in that area. So like whenever I find that area clear and I get to the park, I'm immediately heading out to that area, because I know that from observing what's going on at the park, I know that those are the hot zones that people are always at, and fresh drops should be in that area. So when I come back around, I can go ahead and sweep all those areas and find what it is that I can find or not. And then at that point, if I can't find anything or it proved to be unfruitful, then I will step back and go to the other areas that people might have hung out in, maybe not as trafficked, and then I start working my ways around there. But nevertheless, that's the third factor, man, is just walking over it, so getting on top of it. You have to walk over the target. All the techniques in the world, all the technology in the world, that is great to have, but you also have to have that observation. You have to have that intuition of knowing where to look and actually getting on top of that target and walking on it. All three of those have to play together in order for you to get paid together, right, man? So anyways, man, thank you again tuning in. Joey, this is Tech Talk 66. You're watching Vegas Detect. I'll catch you guys in the next video, guys. You guys be well. Take care.